Welcome to Cure Connection, Sebastian. We've heard from Dr. Proud about how patients present with spinal muscular atrophy. Can you tell us about your story, about how you were diagnosed?
It all started when my parents took me to the beach, and usually children, when the water comes up, you try to jump over top of the water. I wasn't able to jump as high, so that was concerning to them. My mom did do a lot of research over the years. They kind of believe, like Dr. Proud said, it was something just developmentally, excuse me. But after a while, they noticed that it was getting a lot worse, and then I started actually getting in trouble in school for not keeping up with the other kids during PE time.
And how old were you when there was first a suggestion that something might not be quite right?
I was 3 or 4 when my mom noticed it, but when I started getting in trouble, I was about around 9 years old, but also in elementary school too, I was getting in a lot of trouble for not keeping up with other kids.
So between the ages of 3 and 9, yes, if you can think back to when you were at school, do you remember being slower, yes, in the playgrounds and compared to your friends? You remember that?
I did notice that. That kind of social relationships were a little weird because they didn't understand how I could, at the age, have such big calf muscles, but couldn't do a lot of the things that came with the athletic aspect of school. So it was a little uncomfortable, but I have a good personality, so I was able to navigate around it. But it did kind of trouble me, and it troubled my parents because they thought I was just kind of, at one point, they thought I was just, kidding around in school. But once they actually learned that, no, once they started noticing stuff themselves, they're like, no, there is something really wrong.
And did you ever get any comments from teachers at school about, not moving as quickly as you should? Or?
Yeah, I actually got written up.
Oh, really?
Yes, I got written up, especially when we did like the mile runs or anything with the fitness test. They really just, because I used to play around in class, I will admit to that, but they just thought I was just playing around. And when I tried to explain to them, no, I really cannot do this to that extent, they just thought I was making up excuses. So.
And we've heard a lot already about weakness of muscles and strength. Any other symptoms that come to mind in those early years other than sort of weakness and not being able to keep up? You didn't have any pain or anything, no? It was just weakness.
Well, earlier, in my earlier years, I did have pain that came with tight quad muscles. So that in the beginning, they thought that's just all it was. Once we get those loose, you do a little physical therapy, you'll be fine. And then once they realized that even with that physical therapy, it was still something wrong and I was still moving slower than the rest of the kids, then they started to do more research.
So at what age did your mum first seek medical help and you ended up in front of a pediatrician? Do you remember that?
I do not remember that quite, but I know that I was first diagnosed I believe from my child at 9.
Right. And you take care of Sebastian?
I have the pleasure, yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about when you first met Sebastian and how obvious it was to you at that point, whether this was the diagnosis or was it when tests were done that it then confirmed your suspicions?
So we have a very unique way that we met, actually. It's a fantastic story. So my partners, who have been practicing neurology for well over 20 years, used to take care of Sebastian when he was a younger person. He had not been seen in the clinic for many years, and when there was the first FDA-approved treatment for spinal muscular atrophy, I had joined the practice about a year previous, and given my specialty, knowing that this new treatment was available, we decided to do a chart search to see if I could identify that there were any patients who would be amenable to treatment. His name came up, and over time we began making phone calls, and my nurse reached out to him and said, "We'd like you to come in to neurology for a follow-up visit. You haven't been here in several years." And so I walk in, and I've never met him before, and I said, "Hi, my name is Dr. Proud, and I'm a neuromuscular specialist. Did you know that there was a treatment for your diagnosis?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Man, do you get on the internet?" And he said, "No, I try to stay off." Yeah. And I said, "Well, let's talk." And over the course of our visit, we reviewed the new therapy that was available to him. So it was a unique meeting because he already carried the diagnosis, and his molecular testing had been done to confirm that he did in fact have SMA. And then his examination I did, and it followed the path of what I would expect for someone with his phenotype to have.